At a class reunion, someone asked me when I was getting married. I smiled and took out the invitation, handing it out to everyone. You asked just at the right time. I'm getting married during the May Day holiday. Make sure to come. The classmates congratulated me while glancing at my boyfriend beside me. You two have been dating for nearly 10 years. Finally, you're marrying Thaddeus Holloway. At that moment, Thaddeus suddenly splashed wine on my face and angrily said, Alara Whitfield, what's the point of forcing me to marry you? The scene suddenly became very awkward. I slowly wiped the water droplets from my face, unfolded the wedding invitation in front of him, and apologized. Sorry, it doesn't say you're the groom. Every year at the class reunion, everyone would ask me and Thaddeus when we were finally getting married. It had become a regular topic of conversation. After all, a couple who had been dating for nearly a decade without getting married was a rare phenomenon in their eyes. So when I excitedly announced the wedding date and started sending out invitations, everyone was surprised. Soon, everyone began congratulating me. When the invitation reached Thaddeus, I hesitated whether to give him one, but suddenly someone splashed a cup of water at me. When did I ever agree to your proposal, Alara? Is this how you force someone to marry you? The room fell silent, leaving only Thaddeus's angry voice. Alara, I told you I don't want to marry you. You're just making things worse. If you have time for these games, you should just wait another 2 years. Sorry. Are you overthinking this? I wiped my face, looked at Thaddeus calmly, and unfolded the invitation in front of him. Look, it doesn't say you're the groom. By then, several classmates had already opened their invitations and were looking at each other, whispering, Wow, I didn't expect the groom to be someone other than Thaddeus. It says Alastair Winslow. That name sounds familiar. What's going on here? Aren't they together for 10 years? Why did they suddenly switch? Thaddeus angrily snatched the invitation, saw the contents and angrily crumpled it into a ball, throwing it at me. What do you mean by this? Are you acting? Seeing the situation was getting out of hand, 2 classmates quickly came over to separate us and try to calm us down. What's going on? What are you arguing about, Alara? You should give Thaddeus some space. Don't you care about hurting his feelings, Thaddeus, you too? Alara has been so good to you all these years. Everyone can see that. You should calm down and give her some respect. Thaddeus suddenly shook off the classmate's hand, nearly poking me in the face with his finger. Alara, this is your true intention, isn't it? You just want to embarrass me at the class reunion. Right, Thaddeus, I coldly interrupted him. If I remember correctly, didn't we break up a long time ago? He froze for a moment, his face turning pale, as if he had remembered the words I had spoken to him 6 months ago. Regarding the breakup, I had already discussed it seriously with Thaddeus 6 months ago, and even several male classmates who were close to him were aware of the situation. Half a year ago, Thaddeus was at a gathering with a beautiful girl and some friends when he happened to run into me. At the time, I was chatting with a business partner, and he suddenly pointed behind me and asked, Alara, isn't that your boyfriend? I quickly turned around and saw Thaddeus hugging a young woman, smiling and walking toward a private room with his friends. Just that morning, Thaddeus had been complaining about me going out at night, drinking and smelling of alcohol. Yet here he was, not long after, and so conspicuous. I forced myself to suppress my anger, smiled awkwardly, and said, You must have mistaken him. That's not my boyfriend. He went back to his hometown. Sorry. I need to use the restroom. I really hoped this wasn't Thaddeus, but I could clearly hear his voice from the door of their private room. How dare you be so bold? Aren't you afraid Alara will find out you two argued? Ugh. Why bring her up? Thaddeus said with a mocking tone. Even if she finds out, what can she do? Does she dare get angry with me? I just want to ask if you two can relax a bit. What's wrong with me pursuing freedom? But you've been together for 10 years. Don't you worry about not being able to stay with her until the end? Don't worry. She can't live without me. Someone as boring as her? Who else would want to be with her besides me? You were talking about getting married before, but I rejected her. So you plan to keep dragging her along like this and never marry her? Thaddeus took a slow sip of his drink and chuckled. Marriage, don't be ridiculous. I'm still young. How could I spend the rest of my life with her? That's too much of a sacrifice. I think you're overreacting a bit. Thaddeus didn't care. He changed his position, pulled the young beauty into his arms, and whispered to her, Seraphina Mercer, you didn't hear anything just now. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. Seeing this scene outside the door, my head spun, and my heart felt like it was being squeezed tightly, leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. From high school to college and into my career, I had been by Thaddeus's side through the toughest times. Now that my career was stable and I had money and time, I wanted to build a family with Thaddeus, but he kept refusing to marry me. I thought he wasn't ready yet, but it turns out he was afraid I'd interfere with his enjoyment. I suppressed my emotions and forcefully pushed open the private room door, seeing the terrified expression on Thaddeus's face. Thaddeus, you got what you wanted. We're breaking up. As I turned to leave, I could still hear them talking. Thaddeus, you're in trouble? Go explain yourself to Alara right now. Thaddeus clenched his teeth and said, this is just a bluff. I don't believe she'll really leave me. She'll have to come back and apologize eventually, right? After returning home, I moved out of our shared apartment and never contacted Thaddeus again. Thaddeus never reached out to me either. Only when he was drunk did his friends call me a few times, but I pretended not to hear. This class reunion was the first time we had seen each other in 6 months. Seeing the disbelieving expressions on my classmates' faces, I reiterated that Thaddeus and I had broken up 6 months ago. I didn't want my fiancé to misunderstand. So I asked everyone not to bring up the past. Thaddeus stared at me with wide eyes, looking completely disbelieving. Alara, you're joking, right? Whether I'm joking or not. You know the truth. He glared at me, his chest rising and falling rapidly. After a long moment, he sighed helplessly. Alara, don't push it too far. Thaddeus always thought he was clever, believing I was just joking to provoke him. In truth, I didn't want to argue with him and was planning to find an excuse to leave. Just then, my phone rang. Seeing who was calling, I couldn't help but laugh. Hey, Alistair, are you off work yet? Yeah, I'm still at a class reunion. No problem, you don't need to come over. I'll be done here soon. All right, bye. As soon as I hung up, the phone was snatched out of my hand with a forceful grab. Thaddeus glared at the call log, clenching his teeth, and asked, who was that? Where did you find this person? He said, about to dial the number back. I quickly snatched the phone and coldly said, it's none of your business. Thaddeus's eyes turned red, and he clenched his fists tightly, nodding repeatedly. All right, very good. Alara, remember what you said today. I've decided to break up with you. Don't come crying to me in a few days begging for us to get back together. He didn't care about the stares from his classmates, dialing the number loudly with a particularly gentle tone. Hello, Serafina. You mentioned wanting to go on a date with me a few days ago. I agreed. When should we go? I furrowed my brows, quietly said goodbye to the class monitor, and left. The class monitor followed closely behind me, asking Alara, what's going on? Why were you arguing so fiercely? I paused, thought for a moment, and felt it necessary to explain. It wasn't an argument. We've really broken up, and that invitation is real. You're welcome to attend the wedding. What, are you serious? Yes. I walked out of the hall and heard a car honk. The window rolled down, and Alistair was smiling gently at me from inside. I hurried over. Why did you come here? I saw you two were pretty close, and I was worried you'd had too much to drink to drive, so I came over. The other students had mostly dispersed, staring at us in surprise. Suddenly, someone tapped their head and exclaimed, I remember now, Alistair. Isn't he the school heartthrob from our freshman year? Too bad he left the country after just a short time. Hearing that, many people recognized Alistair. I was a bit confused. I didn't remember Alistair at all, even though we were classmates before. Alistair lowered his eyes slightly, but quickly got out of the car and greeted them with a smile. I introduced them. This is my fiancé, Alistair. Did you two know each other before? Oh, we do? I didn't expect you two to be together. Although it had been a long time, I remembered him as soon as I saw Alistair. He was really a handsome guy who was easy to remember. I smiled and said, okay, let's go back first. We'll have a good chat on the wedding day. Just as we got into the car, we saw Thaddeus running over with an angry look on his face. Alistair asked, do you want to go talk to him? No, let's go. Thaddeus' figure grew smaller and smaller until he was just a tiny dot. Alistair didn't seem to care about this little incident and looked calm the whole time. I was a bit curious and asked, Alistair, were we actually classmates before? Yeah, we even talked before. He smiled lightly and said, I'm too ordinary for you to remember. Don't say that. I heard that Alistair was the school heartthrob. How could you not stand out? But when I was in college, I was always with Thaddeus or working part-time jobs. I hardly had any free time, let alone a normal college life. I couldn't even remember the people around me. What a pity. I did so much, but the results weren't what I expected. Alistair seemed to sense my thoughts and gently patted my hand. I'm just joking. At least we know each other now, and it's not too late. My acquaintance with Alistair was thanks to my boss. When I first broke up with Thaddeus, saying I wasn't affected was a lie, though I tried not to let personal matters affect my work. I couldn't muster any interest in anything. When my boss found out, he immediately wanted to introduce me to someone. My boss always treated me with great importance, like a letter or an older brother, so I couldn't refuse. The person he introduced was Alistair, who was also the head of our project partner company. We didn't talk much when we first met, but Alistair gave off a steady and reliable vibe, making me feel at ease. He said he also had a good impression of me, so we decided to give it a try and occasionally have dinner together. Later, as we interacted more due to work, I discovered he was actually a very gentle person, not as cold as he appeared on the surface. The real turning point came when we attended a gathering together, and I accidentally drank too much, ending up with an upset stomach. Alistair, who was in such great shape, carried me home, cooked a hangover soup for me, and fed me stomach medicine. Seeing him bustling around the kitchen, I felt deeply moved. I've had stomach issues quite a few times, and once it was particularly severe, causing me to run a fever. At the time, Thaddeus was out having a great time, and I called him multiple times, but he only answered once. After I explained the situation to him, Thaddeus sounded very angry over the phone. He said, "Alara, you're calling me nonstop over something like this? Do you think I can make you better just by coming back? Can you stop pretending to be so pitiful actually?" At that time, I was just trying my best for our future together, and I only called him because I wanted to talk to him. Alistair turned around with the soup in his hands and saw me looking at him. He paused for a moment and smiled. "What's wrong? You think it's nice having me around? Don't you?" "Yes, it's really nice having you here." I smiled too, feeling a warm sensation in my heart. "Alistair, have you considered being with me?" Alistair blushed and quickly turned away, nervously stirring the soup with a spoon. After a while, he whispered, "Sure, okay." Both of us wanted to get married soon, and our goals were the same. We weren't in a hurry to have children. We met our parents soon after and agreed on a wedding date. The wedding preparations were busy, but Alistair and I worked together, so we could discuss anything at any time. Today, I went to check on the renovation of our wedding house and finished my work early, so I went to Alistair's office. He was busy organizing a pile of documents, and the evening sun shone on his nose, making him look both handsome and warm. When he saw me, he shrugged helplessly. "I still need to organize some documents. Wait for me downstairs at the company, or we might get stuck in traffic later." He always thought of everything in detail. After getting out of the car, I waited outside for Alistair, but unexpectedly saw Thaddeus walking straight toward me. He immediately asked, "Why didn't you answer my calls these past few days?" I furrowed my brows and said, "I've been busy preparing for the wedding. Don't bother me anymore." "Alara, are you still angry? We've already broken up. Don't you understand?" Thaddeus looked at me with a gloomy expression, trying to grab my arm, but I dodged him. He took a deep breath and said in that same condescending tone, "I know you really want to marry me. I don't want to dwell on what happened this time, just move back in first. As for the marriage, I'll reconsider based on your behavior." Seeing Thaddeus like this, I had nothing to say, feeling both ridiculous and pitiful. Thaddeus and I are neighbors. We grew up together and have been in a relationship for 10 years. I never expected that, after all these years, he had never shown me any respect. Now, his words were nothing more than a condescending favor from someone who thinks he's better than me. What does he really think of me? Am I just a loyal, bottomless accessory to him? "Thaddeus, I won't go back to marry you. I already have a fiancé, the one you met last time." "What are you talking about? That actor was hired by you, wasn't it?" "You know I'm not the kind of person who jokes around when I'm angry." I shook my head. "Forget it, there's nothing left to talk about between us." As I turned to leave, Thaddeus suddenly grabbed my sleeve and asked, "What do you mean, forget it?" "Alara, don't forget what you told my father back then. You owe us a favor." His words shocked me and I stopped in my tracks. Thaddeus and I grew up together and ended up together. There were so many complicated emotions involved. It wasn't just love, but also gratitude and responsibility. My mother passed away when I was young, and from as far back as I can remember, it was just my father and me at home. My father was drunk most of the time. When he was drunk, he would get angry and beat me with a wooden stick. One time, I couldn't take it anymore, but my dad kept going. Luckily, Cornelius Holloway happened to pass by and saved me. He said my dad wasn't a good father and told me that if I ever saw him drunk again, I could come to his house for shelter. After my dad passed away unexpectedly, he adopted me and raised me as his own daughter. From that day on, I finally had a place to rely on. Cornelius Holloway was always very kind, and Auntie was in poor health. So Thaddeus was spoiled from a young age. He wasn't very friendly toward me, but compared to my father, those little issues were nothing. Later, perhaps because he grew accustomed to having me around, Thaddeus began to tone down his behavior and gradually accepted me. We lived together for 10 years, until Cornelius Holloway passed away in a car accident. On his deathbed, I promised him I would take care of Auntie alongside Thaddeus and let him rest in peace. Thaddeus had never experienced hardship, and Auntie's medical expenses were substantial, but I never once complained. I truly hoped to spend the rest of my life with Thaddeus, caring for him with all my heart. But then, Alara, why aren't you saying anything? Have you forgotten the promises you made before? You're an ungrateful person. Faced with Thaddeus's barrage of questions, I couldn't utter a single word. I didn't understand where Alara had failed to keep her promise. Alistair had appeared beside me at some point and stood in front of Thaddeus. Alistair, he smiled at me, giving me a reassuring look, then turned to Thaddeus and said back when the incident happened, Alara was just a teenager. She worked tirelessly to support your entire family, often falling asleep on her way to work from exhaustion, yet she never once complained over the years. As a grown man, you rely on others every day. What right do you have to call her ungrateful? I think the truly ungrateful one here is you. I stared at Alistair in shock, surprised he knew so many details. Do you know how severe Alara's stomach condition is? I have many colleagues who work tirelessly, but none of them have neglected their health as much as she has. You can imagine how much effort she put in to ensure you had a good life. Everyone has a heart. How can you question Alara without a shred of guilt? Thaddeus was speechless, his face flushing red with anger. He pointed at Alistair and shouted, "What does this have to do with you? Alara is my girlfriend. Taking care of me is her duty. Who are you to question me?" I stepped forward, standing in front of Alistair, and said coldly, "I'm no longer your girlfriend. Please don't say these things in front of my fiancé." You all." Thaddeus stared at us, his gaze piercing, and said through gritted teeth, "Alara, are you serious?" "I've always been serious," I thought for a moment and replied. "Thaddeus, I will continue to cover Auntie's medical expenses, but you're an adult now, you've finished your studies, and you should be able to live independently. If Uncle were still alive, he wouldn't want you to just sit around doing nothing. Cornelius Holloway has been very kind to me, so every time I faced Thaddeus's accusations, I would reflect on whether I had done enough and never defend myself. But just now, seeing Alistair standing before me with that resolute back, I suddenly understood. I'm about to get married. If I continue to be entangled with Thaddeus and don't clarify things, how can I face Alistair? Thaddeus paused for a moment, as if carefully considering every word I said. His eyes suddenly turned red. "No, Alara, are you trying to leave me? You can't just abandon me like this." Tears streamed down his face as he bowed his head, seeming to mutter to himself, "We were really good together. That's right, on one hand, he used my money to pursue others, while on the other hand, he enjoyed the sacrifices I made for him, so of course he felt satisfied, and I endured every late night waiting for him to come home, smelling the alcohol on his breath and the scent of another woman's perfume. Only I knew the pain of that. Don't come looking for me again." I glanced at my watch and whispered to Alistair, "Let's go." Just as we took a few steps, Thaddeus suddenly shouted from behind me, "Alara, do you really think he's a good person? He's been lying to you all along." "Alistair, do you dare tell Alara why you transferred schools and went abroad back then? Was it because your true self was exposed and you couldn't stay at school anymore?" Alistair suddenly stopped, his body trembling slightly. "Oh, I see you haven't heard. Let me tell you then. Alara, you probably don't know this, but Alistair has never been a serious person since he first enrolled. He's been flirting with girls everywhere, and even tried to steal others' girlfriends. All the boys at our school who knew about this hated him. If he hadn't gone too far and been ostracized to the point of having to leave, why would he give up his title as the school heartthrob and quietly transfer abroad?" "Stop it." I walked up to Thaddeus and said, "You're making this up, and you'll have to face the legal consequences." I know what I'm talking about. Thaddeus glared angrily at Alistair's figure, then turned to me and tried to calm me down. His tone softening, I understand. I did act recklessly in the past, but we've been together for 10 years. You know I'm not a bad person at heart, but do you really know him? I think he just got bored and came back for you. Thaddeus, I interrupted him in a low voice. If you say another word about my fiancé, I won't hesitate to hire a lawyer and send you a cease and desist letter. Thaddeus looked utterly shocked, opening his mouth but unable to speak. Ilara, you can't do this to me. I pushed him away and hurriedly left with Alistair. Ever since Thaddeus said those words earlier, Alistair's expression had been grim. I whispered, why don't we go look at the house another day? How about I take you home first? He shook his head. It's okay, let's go. After a moment he said, Ilara, I don't want you to take on those things. It's all a misunderstanding. Alistair's voice was low, almost tentative. I couldn't help but tiptoe up and gently stroke his hair. I believe you. Although I hadn't known Alistair for very long, I felt he wouldn't lie. He had always been sincere and open. Actually, I wasn't completely unaware of what Thaddeus had said, the person I often saw at the noodle shop when I worked there. Was that you? Alistair paused, turned to look at me and asked, you remember me? Of course I remember. He would come rain or shine, order a bowl of noodles, and sit quietly in the corner to eat. That time he was surrounded and bullied by a group of people, and I went with the boss to help him. At that time, he was struggling to survive amid bullying and rumors. I was under a lot of pressure at the time and didn't have time to get involved in other matters. So I could only help him that once. After that, he would come to the noodle shop every day, never speaking to anyone, but supporting our business. He was very timid and shy back then, so different from the outgoing and confident person he is now. If it weren't for Alistair being able to accurately recall the details of my time working there, combined with some of Thaddeus's remarks, I might not have been able to connect the two of them. Alistair hesitated and said, you're the only one who ever helped me. I was worried your boyfriend might misunderstand, so I could only repay you this way. I couldn't help but smile and said, my wages are paid by the hour. You can eat as much noodles as you want, and I won't pay you extra. What? Alistair lowered his head in frustration. I thought you might get a commission. Just kidding. At least your support means I'm doing a decent job. Before we knew it, the car had arrived at the new house. Alistair and I took a quick look around. The decoration was pretty much as planned, and we were both satisfied. Seeing the brand new kitchen, I asked, since we haven't eaten yet, why don't I make some noodles and show you how I cook? Sure. Alistair bent down to find 2 aprons. Let me help you. Seeing him cut the vegetables so carefully, a mischievous thought popped into my head, and I cupped his face with my flour-covered hands. Alistair's eyes widened, and he suddenly grabbed a handful of flour and threw it at me. In the end, even though we were both wearing aprons, our clothes were covered in flour, and neither of us escaped unscathed. We talked about everything that had happened that year, and during dinner, the two of us started chatting like old friends. Alistair's cheeks were puffed out, and his eyes sparkled whenever he talked about something he was interested in. In that moment, I suddenly realized that this was what I had always wanted. That simple kind of happiness. Since I had warned Thaddeus downstairs at the company, he hadn't bothered me for an entire week. My wedding date with Alistair was approaching. To avoid disrupting work during my honeymoon, I've been working overtime lately to push the project forward. This morning, as I was leaving early, someone suddenly blocked my path. Thaddeus looked exhausted, with a scruffy beard and dark circles under his eyes, and he no longer had the confidence he once did. As I was about to walk around him, he suddenly spoke. Ilara, didn't you say you'd take care of my mother's illness? She's been coughing at the hospital lately and said she wants to see you. I clenched my fists, then let them go, turned around and looked at him expressionlessly. I know, you can go now. Ilara, aren't you coming with me? I didn't answer and walked away. Getting into the car and leaving, I still went to the hospital. The ward still had that familiar disinfectant smell, and Auntie looked thinner than last time. When she saw me, she forced a smile and tried to sit up. I rushed over to help her. Ilara, I heard you're getting married. Yes. Auntie's eyes betrayed a hint of unhidden sadness. Thaddeus has been crying every day, saying you don't want to be with him anymore, and asked me to convince you to reconsider. You two have been together for 10 years. Can't you at least try again? I turned my head and sighed deeply. Auntie, I'm getting married. If my fiancé finds out about this, he'll be heartbroken. Sigh, I understand. All these years, you've been like a daughter to me. I thought we could grow closer, but it seems Thaddeus isn't very lucky. I'm sorry. Auntie gently patted my hand and said earnestly, Alara, there's no need to apologize to me. All these years, you've not only taken care of Thaddeus, but also worked hard to help me pay for his medical bills. You've done your best, and we're truly grateful to you. I held Auntie's hand, smiled gently, and shook my head. Auntie, please don't say that. These are things I should do. The wedding preparations are busy. You should go back quickly. If there's an opportunity, I really hope you can come over next time. Besides Thaddeus, we're like family, all right. As soon as I stepped out of the ward, I saw Thaddeus eavesdropping at the door. He hadn't had time to hide. His face was pale, and his voice trembled as he said, Am I really? Never going to have another chance. I've already said everything I needed to say to him. Now, I only want to tell him one thing. Take care of yourself. When I got home, Alistair was writing something in his study. There was a piece of red paper spread out on the desk. He had said yesterday that we should write marriage vows for each other. And I didn't expect him to start preparing so soon. I hugged him from behind and rested my head gently on his back, teasing him. I didn't know you could write calligraphy. Yes, I've been learning since I was a child. Alistair was very serious when he wrote, taking great care with every stroke. When he finished, I saw the familiar handwriting on the marriage contract and was a bit dazed. He looked at me, surprised, and asked, What's wrong, Alistair? Do you know that I've actually seen you before? I never had a complete family growing up. My father was an alcoholic with a reclusive temper, and I often wondered what the point of living was. One day, after being beaten badly by my father, I walked out of the house with a heavy heart, staring blankly at the traffic on the road. I thought to myself, if I were hit by a car, would it hurt? For some reason, I was suddenly drawn to a children's calligraphy exhibition. When I walked in, the first piece I saw was a handwritten version of The Difficulty of the Road. I didn't know much about calligraphy, but I felt that the characters were very powerful, like a sword that could cut through any obstacle. The final lines, The long wind will break the waves someday, and we will hoist our sails to cross the vast sea, were particularly powerful. At that moment, little Alistair stood on the podium, using his innocent voice to express his understanding of the poem. Though I hadn't experienced great hardships yet, I knew many people were struggling to survive. I wanted to tell them that no matter how difficult things get, they will eventually end, and everyone must stay optimistic. Such encouragement was something I had never heard before. I suddenly thought, what about my situation? Will the dark days I've experienced ever come to an end? Can I also become someone who bravely overcomes difficulties? Alistair's words took root in my heart like seeds, making me yearn to keep living and achieve my own life. It turns out that my connection with Alistair was already destined long ago. Alistair listened to me, remained silent for a moment, then reached out and hugged me tightly. I really have to thank my younger self for saying those words. So you could hear them. I gently patted his back, feeling my eyes grow misty. Thank you. Alistair looked up, hesitated, then said, Oh, there's a package that arrived at the house today. He handed me a box labeled Sent by Thaddeus. There was a note attached, wedding gift. I handed the box back to Alistair and said, You handle it? It's up to you. Don't you want to open it and see what's inside? Maybe it contains memories from the past. There's nothing worth seeing. In my eyes, every memory with Thaddeus was filled with betrayal and lies. Nothing beautiful. I gently touched Alistair's face. I only want to create beautiful memories with you. I didn't expect Thaddeus to call again that evening, telling me he was leaving the country. Alara, I've let go of this relationship and hope you'll be happy. Can you come see me off on the day I leave? Like an older sister. Thaddeus, you know so many people, you don't need me as a sister. And I don't have the habit of treating my ex-boyfriend like a younger brother. There was a moment of silence, followed by the sound of soft sobbing. So you still don't want to forgive me, right? You misunderstood. I've long since stopped caring about you, whether it's love or hate. You're still asking these questions, which means you haven't let go either. I thought this to myself and then blocked his number. On the day of the wedding, the classmates who had received my invitation really made time to come, and everyone offered their sincere blessings. At the main table during the banquet, I had intentionally reserved a seat for the boss, who was very pleased and kept praising me for taking good care of him. When the ceremony began, Alistair appeared in a white suit. looking as handsome as a prince from a fairy tale, causing everyone to cheer. He smiled as he walked toward me, and I silently vowed to myself, no matter how far the future may be, I will make sure he is as happy and joyful every day as he is today.